Hi, this is Tom from World Class Coaching with another in our series of animated drills. This is an activity taken from a recent podcast where I described this diamond shooting activity. And the idea here is to work on combination play to score. So you've got kind of a technical environment, but you also are giving the players tactical options and ways to combine. So the way this is set up is focused not on how far the cones are away from each other, but on how they're placed relative to the areas on the field. So if you're playing on a 7v7 field, you want to have this set up between the top of the arc and the top of the circle. Same thing if you're playing on an 11v11 field, because obviously you've got older players that have to manage a larger space. So spreading it out in this way makes it relative to the size of the game. Now, if you feel like your players technically or physically aren't able to manage that kind of space, then you can shrink it. Or if you want to challenge them more in that way, then you can expand it. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your team. So what we have here is we've got the diamond set up. We have extra players here. And what I would stress is that you really don't want to do this activity with more than 6 players. So you could have it run with 6 players on this side going to one goal and then 6 players on another goal. You could have the goal set up alongside here and have 2 of these going and just make them a little bit smaller, but as a way to keep everybody involved. If you have too long of a line, obviously the players aren't getting the repetitions. It's hard to stay focused, and they're just not going to get as much out of the activity. So I'll describe 3 different patterns. As you can see from this setup, there's hundreds of ways that you could have the players combine. There's 3 ways that I described that I'm doing with my teams in the podcast, so I'll show those here. The first one is we're going to have a pass go wide. We'll just get this going here, this passing line. So a pass goes wide to this player who opens up into the space before the pass is going to be played. So we'll just move that out here. So the pass goes there, and then we have a second pass that goes into the target player at the top of the diamond. And then what we want is we want this player to make a run into the space. Now, what's really important here, what I stressed with the players is you've got to time this run. You don't want to get into that space too early because then the pass is going to be behind you or you're going to run into an offside position. So after you play this in, you have to kind of hold your run and allow for the player to then play it back into your path so that you can run onto that. And then you're looking for now for a shot from the edge of or outside of the penalty area. So that's the first pattern. Just a simple ball is out, ball is into the striker. You have a run that goes from the wide area in, and you're timing that run to a ball that's played in, and you take a shot. So simple pattern. It's run to then where the players follow their pass. So this player follows to the next spot, this player follows to the next spot, and the activity then starts again on the other side where we open up, pass it in, get it back, shoot it that side. So by alternating in this way and having the players rotate in this way, as soon as this player strikes the ball, they should come back and show for the ball. So now you have a movement where the player is coming back into this space. So as soon as the player strikes it, really this next player in line can step up and make their pass right away. We don't need that line there. We'll just take that out. And so immediately this player can step up, make their pass into this player, and we can have this going very quickly. At the same time, we want to be sure to focus on the technical aspects of the exercise to make sure that the players are receiving it with their back foot. They're timing their movement to open up, playing it in, holding their run, and then having a good technical strike on goal to try to finish. So that's the first pattern. Pretty simple pattern, not very complicated for the players. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of build from there. So I'll just take these lines away quickly. And the next pattern involves a ball being played. Again, I could have left that line, I suppose, but we're going to play a ball into this player. This player should check a little bit in this direction this time. And now we're going to play layoff, basically, into this space so that then the player who initiated the movement here and initiated the passing can then follow their pass into that space in order to receive the ball and then pass into the target, who will then turn to finish. So we want this player kind of on the dribble here, on the turn. Get too close to the player and it grabs that player, so you just have to find the space. We're going to have that player turn. They could either turn inside or outside. It doesn't matter which direction they turn. They can turn to the right or the left. That line I don't like, so we won't use that one. But we could turn in either direction. We can turn this way, we can turn that way in order to then shoot on goal. So we're getting a shot in now from that central area. So we're playing up, back, through to the striker who turns to finish. And again, easy pattern for the players to understand, not complicated. The movements here are a little bit more difficult in terms of the timing then of the next phase, because we want this player to go here. After this player goes here, they show to the top. This player then has to get their ball and come back. And so there's some timing that you just have to make sure that this other side doesn't start too soon, or the player won't be ready because they're making their run from here. So you could, if the players are at a high enough level, they can really start to figure out how quickly to play this so they can get it back, and then they can hit this player on the move as they come into this space, and the player can turn and go in, or the player could come away like to the penalty spot or top of the box, probably more realistic, and then check back to the ball so they can come up, check back to the ball. This activity can be coached at so many different levels because it can just be very basic, just up, back, through, and turn for younger or less experienced players. For more advanced players or more skillful players and players that are just kind of that much more advanced, then you can challenge them with these kind of extra movements. So you'll just have to look at your players and see how they're reacting. If they're understanding it, then you start to layer in more complexity and more game-like examples that make it more, just make it easier really for the players to transfer what they're doing here into the game. So there's another one, up, back, and through is that second pattern. The third pattern is a little more complicated, and the rotations always seem to catch my players by surprise. It's something that they haven't mastered yet, even though we've done this a number of times. So the way this works, I call this a figure four. So we're playing into the striker, then we're laying it back off to this player who should come inside their cone. So the ball is being laid back here. Ideally, this is a layoff pass and not just a hard pass back to their feet. We're not passing it hard back. We're laying it into that space. So then this player can lay the ball through for this player on the outside to run onto. So we basically have kind of a third man running. So I'll just play this into this space. So they're running into that space to then reach the ball and have a shot on goal. So it goes up, back, and through as we did before, but we're involving that third player. So the quality of the passes has to be better. The angle of the passes has to be appropriate, because if the ball is played out too flat, it's going to be hard to play through there. If it's played back too direct, in toward the first player here who started it, it's going to be difficult for this player to reach the ball and time that pass. So we just have to have a nice layoff into the path of that player who plays it there and then comes through and times this run so that they reach that space, not too early, but after the ball has been played, they're making the run into that space and then finally having a good shot on goal. These are all very realistic patterns that the players will see in the games. Now, here's where it gets complicated because the rotation of this one is a little different. You notice that this player over here, all they did was check inside to receive the ball and play it. Well, we don't want to just leave them there to do that the whole time, or have to, not get an opportunity to shoot, to rotate away and not get that opportunity. So the way this works, and I'll just take this off for clarity, the lines off here. The way it works is that the player who shot will then come to the top where they're going to lay the ball off again. So I'll just show you with the player movements. That'll be easier. So this player laid it off. This player is done. So they're going to get a ball and they're going to return back to the line here. This player who took the shot is going to check back to the top. This player who made the pass is going to come out to this side. I won't flip them around or give you a new character, but you can see how that works. And now we'll do the same thing, but we'll initiate this through ball to the player playing through. We're going to initiate this through the middle, and this player's got to lay it off wide to the opposite player so then we can play through. So it's the same figure four pattern that we had before, where it goes up, it goes back, and then it goes through that gap for this wide player to then run onto. So all that pattern is the same. We're just doing it to the other side. So you see how that rotation happened, and now we'll do that same rotation here. This player will retrieve a ball and go to the end of the line. this player who just took a shot will come back here. This player will fill in. This player gets to stay here because they haven't shot yet. What I was telling my players is they haven't done the fun part yet. So they haven't gotten to take the shot. So they stay out here on the field until they get that opportunity. So there are the 3 patterns I described in the podcast. You can listen to the podcast for the entire session on decision making that I did this as a part of. So you can go to coachingsoccerweekly.com to see that. But hopefully for the people that listen to the podcast, this illustrates these activities better than I was able to do just verbally. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below or at coachingsoccerweekly.com under episode 166.